Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. So delighted to introduce our guest this morning, Deborah Martin from, and now we can say it, Pregnancy Choices. Good morning.
Good morning.
Deborah, it's kind of a welcome back, isn't it? You have been named the new CEO of Pregnancy Choices. Really, you started July 1st.
Yes.
But needed to let people different communities know one at a time that this big change was taking place, and now we get to shout it from the housetops to the entire world. So welcome back, and tell me about your feelings about coming back to Pregnancy Choices in this capacity.
You know what? I am so excited to come back. It seems like it's been a long time since I've been here, and it really hasn't, because I guess it was back, 7 years ago was when I left. 2001, I believe.
Wow.
No,
okay.
2011. I started in 2000. So 2011 is when I left there.
7 years.
And before that, I served in a couple of different capacities. I actually started there in 2000.
Wow.
I think it was August of 2000, right after Jill started. And it's so exciting to follow her in this endeavor, because one thing I need people to know, she's not gone. She's just stepped into another role. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yes.
But to follow her after 19 years of her being there, it's a phenomenal role to go into. I served under her for 11 years before as the abstinence director and also the relationship matters director, which we go into the schools and talk about, saving yourself into marriage and all of the benefits of not giving yourself away, plus all of the consequences that could happen if you don't. So that was my capacity before, and now I'm back into a brand new role.
You two have always been a dynamic duo. Talk to me a little bit about working with her and working together, as Pregnancy Choices then was the Pregnancy Support Center of Stark County, has not changed its mission at all, but just a different name, and a much smaller organization in those days. So what was that like? Tell me about the old days.
It was. I remember the first time I met Jill, I actually walked into her office to purchase tickets for an auction. They were having auctions back then as one of their fundraisers. And I walked in and I had this conversation with her, and I said, hey, I started to apply for a job here. And she said, well, why didn't you? And, for whatever reason, I chose not to. And she said, well, it's one open now. Do you want to apply? So that's how I got started with her. And that was at a little house down on Market Street. And that is where we were for a few years until we moved. And Jill has expanded the program into multiple locations, in a larger main facility. And so I just worked right along with her. She's a phenomenal woman to work with.
Since those days, you've done a lot in the nonprofit world. Talk to me a little bit about the other amazing experience you're bringing to the table.
You know what? I always say God takes us from one place to another for us to learn something to get us to where we need to be, to our ultimate destiny. And I think about the day that I left Pregnancy Support Center at that point was the day that I found out that my grant that I was under was not renewed. So that was the only reason I left. There was no other reason for me leaving. And I remember sitting in my office crying, because I did not want to leave this phenomenal place to work. And I ended up going to another nonprofit called the Ridge Project, which worked with ex-offenders. So I was able to open up an office here and work with the director here. And so I was like his, assistant here. And we were able to do that for 3 years. And again, another grant fell through. And that's why I ended up leaving that place. And God's timing is always great, because right behind that, I was offered a job at Habitat for Humanity. And I've been there for the last almost 3 years. And God told me earlier this year, story that I won't forget, the day he told me, Deborah, your time here at Habitat is coming to an end. And, like any person would, I said, what, Lord? My time, what? And, he started working out the plans from that day as to where I would be. Never in my wildest dreams would I would have thought to be back at Pregnancy Choices as CEO.
Isn't it something how he really lays the path and then lets us in on it?
Yes.
Because Jill has been threatening to retire for over a year. And the fact that he was preparing you to step seamlessly right into that role. What is she going to be doing now? This is fun, because I'm so happy and everyone's so relieved when you say, well, she's not going anywhere. She's changing her duties and her role and the hat she will be wearing there.
Right. One of Jill's major gifts, I think one of the gifts that God has given her, is the ability to talk to people and to organizations and churches in order to provide funding for the ministry. And she's just gifted.
Yes.
So she's able to go into that donor development role, which is what she loves to do anyway. And has, pulled her back a little bit on her hours, so to give her a little bit of time to relax and play and hang out with her husband a little bit more, but also still be able to raise the funds that's needed to keep the center running.
So much of that is relationships.
Yes.
And Pregnancy Choices seems to have wonderful relationships with the churches and people in this area. It seems that once someone has been a client, they want to come back as a volunteer. Talk about that relationship building.
You know what? And we say that all of the time. People become clients, and then they learn more about the ministry and realize what all we do. Because I think there's some misconceptions out there as to what we do, and they don't realize that we are all about relationships, all about helping women, to be the best and to be healthy and all of those things. And I don't think most people even realize all of the services that we provide there at Pregnancy Choices.
Well, I don't want to give you a pop quiz, but let's talk about what are some of those services that folks might be surprised to find out.
One of the things, the way, as I said at the beginning, when I started, it was going into the schools. So we have this program called Sold Out, and we call this our prevention area. So we have 3 areas: prevention, intervention, and reconciliation. And with the prevention area is when we get a chance to go into the school system. And in almost every school in the Stark County area, we have presenters that go in and talk about healthy relationships. They share information about STIs, but also talk about the emotional part of being in relationships, and just trying to help both boys and girls, so males and females. So it's just not one-sided. Help all of them to, maintain healthy relationships so that they can go into life later with healthier relationships. And then the second part is, if we miss them there, we have the opportunity to pick them up in the middle with the intervention. Yeah. So we're there for anybody, any woman who thinks she might be pregnant. She can come in and she can get a pregnancy test. If she can get an ultrasound within a limited time, she can get STI testing. We can do Pap smears, and the great thing is, everything is free. We don't charge anything for any of our services.
Amazing. Other organizations can't say that.
Right. But God provides in ways through the donors and other places that we're able to do that. So they come in and they get all of these services, and they build relationships with the ladies that they meet and they spend time with. And that, I think that is why you said earlier, sometimes they come back and do other things in the, with the ministry, because they feel the love. You feel the love when you walk in the door. You don't feel judged when you walk in the door, because people want you to really, really just do what you're supposed to do, and not do what you're supposed to do, but just basically be able to live the way God intended for you to live.
Let's park there a second. That is one of the comments that comes back over and over again is, I didn't feel judged here. They were so warm and welcoming. I felt loved here. I did not feel judged. Talk about that, because so many women might be afraid to step into a faith-based organization saying, I think I'm pregnant. I mean, that might be one of the misconceptions you were talking about.
Right.
Let's address those.
Right. When you are loving people according to the way that God says to love people, God doesn't judge us. He accepts us for who we are, no matter where we are in life. He says, come to me and I will be there for you. I will love on you. I will strengthen you. I will support you, whatever. That is how the women at Pregnancy Choices, that's how we treat our clients. That's how we treat anybody who comes through the door. You are greeted with a smile. There is no judgment. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter how you got into any situation that you're in. We are there to love you through it. And that is what Pregnancy Choices is about.
We've all done stuff and know what it's like to be forgiven. That's what we all share as Christians. So it ought to be just a natural flow of things to be able to express that same forgiveness that we've experienced to other folks as well, and the love and acceptance that they need at that point. That's not a time to be pointing fingers at anyone.
It's not.
That would be piling on, wouldn't it?
That is. That would be right.
Now let me let you keep on going. What's the reconciliation part?
The reconciliation is there as a like a grief recovery or a regret, because all like you said earlier, we've all done things that we look back and think, why did I do that?
Yeah.
So we're there as a support to that person who wants to deal with any of those things that may be concerning them, and sometimes they don't even realize what those concerns may be. You could be grieving over anything. It could be over the death of someone. It could be from a miscarriage. It could be from an abortion. But sometimes people don't even realize that some of the anger issues and other things that they're dealing with may be related back to something that God truly hasn't gotten a chance to dig in and dig it out and heal you from it. So it's a healing ministry. And we have phenomenal facilitators who take care of that.
Yeah, again, offered at no charge.
No charge.
Want to point out these are not licensed counselors, but these are Bible studies that people are led through together. Often licensed counselors are the volunteers,
right?
But the employees themselves are leading folks through these Bible studies, and they've got decades of experience in doing this with very positive results. Do you want to talk about that?
You're correct. They're not licensed counselors. But the great thing is they lead you through this Bible study, and God does the work.
Yeah.
So it's not the facilitators or the women who are doing the work through this. They're just helping you deal with it and allow the Holy Spirit and allow God to just dig it out, deal with it, tear it apart, do what he does.
That's a perfect word. They're facilitators. He's the counselor.
Right.
He's the wonderful counselor.
Exactly.
But they are just facilitators to let him take them through his word and let him do his work inside everyone that is there. It's got to be, I love that you divide it up, because it's got to be very different working with a group of women who have gone through miscarriage and a group of women who've gone through abortion and are now suffering the regrets of that. How do you approach each of those? I know, you've been there a week.
You're asking me some hard questions. I have only been there a few
That's
weeks.
okay. And if I'm getting into something that, I'm still finding that out,
Yes.
That's okay to say as well.
There are a few things I know. There's a lot that I don't know at this point. So I don't want to, give any information that's not correct. Mm-hmm. But I do know that they do come at it from different angles. I can't even talk. Angles. Because of the process, the how to deal with it. If a person who's had a miscarriage, that was something that wasn't by choice.
Right.
If they had an abortion, that was a choice they made. So you got to deal with the mental part of that as to, why the decision was made and how it affects you, in that whole process. And even with, like I said, with the grief part, people don't choose to let somebody die.
Right.
It just happens. So you've got to deal with the aftermath of that.
Mm-hmm. How awesome to have a place to go to whatever. It can be job loss. It can be a pet loss.
Yes.
Any kind of loss that they are ready to take you seriously and sit down and listen and let you work through that process. We all grieve differently, don't we?
Exactly.
The parenting part is so amazing that you do. The meeting with young people who the choice they make is to parent this baby. And that, I think, is when you bring in a lot of young men at the same time. And I love seeing couples working through things together. The Vital program is so amazing. We're helping address this abysmal infant mortality rate that we've got in our area. Can you talk about those programs?
I am just now learning a little bit about the Vital program. Mm-hmm. And you're right. For whatever reason, Ohio, and even just Canton, Ohio, Stark County area, we have a high infant mortality rate. So because of that, there was something that was set up a few years ago in order to deal with that. So we have this program that they walk through with women from the time they're pregnant. They're there for part 2 after they have the baby. They even have a birthday party for them when they turn 1, and we support them all the way, I believe, up until they're 2, I believe.
Oh, awesome.
in that program. Mm-hmm. So you have this same group of women who walk together, and we partner them with, they have to be pregnant at the same time. So you got this same group who basically end up forming a huge bond among themselves as they walk through these first 2 or 3 years of life. You know, the pregnancy, the year 1 and then year 2, to walk through together and be able to just fellowship and come together and ask questions and learn and receive gifts and all kinds of things because of being in this program. So it's a vital program. What an appropriate name.
It is. Aren't you just so excited to be involved with all of this?
I am.
We need to take a short break talking with Deborah Martin from Pregnancy Choices. She's the new CEO. No, Jill Taylor's not leaving. She is Director of Donor Development. And we're going to be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.